Hello everyone, we welcome you to Glass Academy Webinars 2023. The theme for this year is Art and Science of Designing Responsibly. Today we have with us Professor Architect Sharath H. Aithal, who's an Associate Professor, Faculty of Architecture, PES University, and also an Associate Architect in AAA Bengaluru. Architect Sharath has done his bachelor's degree in architecture from Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering and holds a master's in architecture MArch Habitat Design first class distinction from BMS College of Engineering. During his academic years, Architect Sharath won a national award for best thesis conferred by National Institute of Advanced Studies in Architecture, which is an academic unit of COA India. He was also awarded with the highest S grade by Indian Institute of Science for his academic excellence in environmental management. Architect Sharath has represented the state of Karnataka in Intel Science Talent Discovery Fair at national level. With over 10 years of professional experience and 9 years of teaching experience, he has been a speaker at various forums and have been actively involved in paper setting, evaluation, and jury in reputed universities across India. Architect Sharath specialized in sustainable, low carbon, and energy efficient planning and architecture, and he believes in integration of science with architecture is the way forward. So do we, sir. Welcome, Architect Sharath. We are delighted to have you here with us today, and we are looking forward to your presentation. Let's hear from you on the topic, architecture's role in environmental justice. Over to you, sir.
Namaskara and hello to everyone. Thank you, Anvita ma'am, for such a wonderful introduction. I'd like to thank you, Geeta ma'am, Nikita ma'am, Sonam ma'am, and the entire Ethos family for giving me this platform to reach out to a lot more students across the globe with a challenging issue of today's time, which is environmental justice. I'd like to also thank Team Saint Gobain and Glass Academy. They have been a huge support in many such noble endeavors. Making the world a better home. This is a very well thought out theme for this third module. Home and family is something that we all closely and dearly associate ourselves with and make memories in, which, according to me, is the whole purpose of life. All of us want to make our homes better. A phrase from the Upanishads, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means whole world is one family, makes this theme even more relevant to today's topic of environmental justice and the role architecture could play in making the world a better home. I'd like to share the screen and start off with today's presentation. Yeah, so architect's role in environmental justice is the topic for today, and we'll get started with the presentation. Environmental justice is achieved when all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or even their incomes, live in a neighborhood which is free of health hazards. This is as per the definition of US EPA, Environmental Protection Act. It aims to address the disproportionate burden of the environmental impact on marginalized communities. The neocentric ecosystem we live in today is built on the pillars of industrialization and technology. Economic development has, on one hand, raised the living standards of many, but also has given rise to some problems such as the uncontrolled exploitation of natural resources and pollution caused by unchecked discharge of waste, bringing many natural ecosystems to the brink of collapse. This is a common phenomenon that we have seen today. Whenever we talk of development, it is only the economic goals that we are always associating with. But at the Stockholm Conference in 1972, the United Nations Conference on Human Environment, the then Indian Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, stated that poverty is the worst form of pollution. The inherent conflict is not between the environment and development, but between the environment and the reckless exploitation of the earth's resources by man in the name of development. The world population today is around 8.1 billion and is expected to grow more in the next few decades. It is well understood that as the population grows, the rate of the consumption of the natural resources and the rate of the waste production also increases. The population of Easter Island, because this is one of the best metaphors that we could, align with such a topic. The population of Easter Island reached its peak at perhaps more than 10,000, far exceeding its limits. And later, it couldn't sustain. The people there fled that entire island because there was no resources left for them to sustain in that island. We could also associate the same with our own Vijayanagara Empire, where it is always associated to be selling gold, silver, a lot of other costly metals on the streets of that empire. But later, again due to the lack of the resources, the entire empire collapsed. Right. So we definitely need environmental justice in ways in which everyone has access to it, and it is not only about today that we should be concentrating on. The people of today, what they enjoy, the next generation should also be enjoying that, and that is the whole goal of sustainability. Because low income communities have less access to resources and the built environment, the environmental effects of the climate change affect them at a much more higher rates. The economic, environmental, health, and social changes brought today by the rising sea levels, more destructive storms, forest fires, and record breaking summer and winter temperatures that we are all facing today has left the impoverished and the marginalized communities with fewer resources to counteract the effects. It is true that not all people are affected equally by the climate change, despite the fact that it may be evident that ecological differences mean that the different parts of the world are not currently affected equally by its current effects. There are a lot of countries which have not been affected so much. For example, there are certain countries which call themselves as the first world countries, where most of the pollution is given rise to. But we, at the end of the day, we see all the blame to be putting up on the third world countries for today's global climatic change, when most of the waste of the first world countries are being dumped in these third world countries. And the effect is not going to be only on these third world countries, it is also going to be on these first world countries, and hence everyone together has to address the issue if we need a sustainable future. Current state of affairs. Environmental injustice is a persistent problem around the world. Low-income communities are disproportionately impacted by pollution, climate change, and other environmental hazards. According to EPA, low-income communities are more likely to be living near the polluting industries and suffer from health problems related to pollution. Not only the health problems, but also we could see the best example that we have seen in our recent history, which is the Bhopal gas tragedy, where uh, most of the people lived very close to the industry itself. Why? Because they wanted to cut short the entire transportation time that was there between their houses to the industries. And as soon as the industry came in, the next stage was where the housing came in, and that made sure, that the impact of the tragedy was more worse. Had there been better planning, a visioned plan, maybe such a disaster would not have been witnessed by the Mother Earth. In addition to the climate change, it is expected to exacerbate the existing inequalities and disproportionately impact the vulnerable communities. The current state of affairs demands immediate action to address the environmental injustice and to promote the sustainable, equitable, and resilient communities. The natural world, which includes water we drink, the air we breathe, and most frequently referred to as the environment. But the built environment, which includes homes, the structures that we reside, work, and play, must be taken into account to achieve the whole purpose of environmental justice. Architecture has emerged as a crucial component of environmental justice because of this reason. If we consider the main causes of climate change and global warming, the picture that comes to our mind is these polluting industries and the extraction of the fossil fuels. However, these pictures fail to highlight the significance of the non-manufacturing establishments that dot our cities and suburbs. Design and the construction of the building accounts for roughly 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions. It is feasible to lower the greenhouse gas emissions and lessen the consequence of the climate change by developing more energy efficient structures and urban areas. And I'm sure in the previous modules, a lot of speakers have spoken about this energy efficiency in building structures. Undoubtedly, given the construction accounts for around 39 to 40% of global yearly carbon dioxide emissions, according to the United Nations Environment Program, if the building solutions implemented globally according to the context, according to the environment, then they could slow down the overall effect of the climate change. We are not saying that the climate change will stop because we immediately give out a sustainable solution in the building industry. It will take a due course of time for the nature to revive itself, but we need to give the time for the nature to revive itself. Architecture plays a very vital role in promoting the environmental justice by integrating sustainable design principles into the built environment. Through innovative approaches, architects can create energy efficient buildings, utilize renewable materials, and design spaces that enhance the well being of both the people and the planet. Promoting equitable access to sustainable design. Equal access and equitable access are two different things. I'll explain that in the next few slides. But before going to the next slide, we would also like to see how we can achieve this equitable access to sustainable architecture. First thing is by equitable design. Designing buildings and spaces that are accessible to all, and it regardless of their socio-economic status. How today we talk about accessible housing to all, but when we say accessible housing, we also mean to say, is it economically feasible? That is the only point that we stop at, which we closely associate to affordable housing. But also we need to concentrate on all dimensions of the society. Are all people in the society able to have access to these developments that are taking place? Is it helping them in their development? Is something that we all need to be looking at. The second one obviously is affordable housing. Is it affordable to all? Now, affordability is a question which a person X could be of a different value. A person Y could be of a different value. So, how do you make that affordability a common index so that everyone has access to affordable housing? Community engagement, bringing everyone together when designing so that everyone's views are taken in, and then a solution provided could also be accessible to all. That is the main intention in having equitable access. Now, equality and equity. Now, these two are clearly shown in this picture, where equality, when we say equality, we say we given a pedestal to these kids who are here, and because of their varying heights, though you are providing them an equal pedal, they are not able to see the match that is happening there. Whereas when you say equity or equitable design, designing for equity, we provide according to their needs the pedestals so that everyone enjoys what is available, what the resources available in the nature. Architects can address environmental justice by designing for equity. This involves considering the needs of all the community and creating inclusive spaces that foster social interaction and well-being. Next one that we'll be taking is the community engagement. By involving the stakeholders in the design process, architects can ensure that projects address community needs, respect cultural values, and create spaces that foster a sense of ownership and pride. Now, this is a very important part of environmental justice, mainly because uh, we need to bring in the community who will know the local cultural values, and they may be able to shed light on what is actually required in that environment. Because normally as designers we tend to concentrate much on the historic values of the place or the requirements of the place, more than the cultural values that have shaped up the place itself, which may affect the people who may be residing there. And that is the main reason we need to bring in the community together and make any designs that are going to be helpful for the entire community. Power of architecture in addressing environmental injustices. There are three main tools that could be used to address this. Regenerative design. It is using architecture to regenerate the ecosystems and address the environmental degradation. Now, can we help the nature in reviving itself? Can the architecture or design play a part in that? Is something that we need to be looking ahead, because looking at the resources that we have, it is very difficult to sustain for the next few decades. And if this continues, if the resources are being used in the current usage scenario, and if this is continuing for the future, then we are definitely in an issue where we need to be addressing regenerative design than only sustainable design. Uh, the second aspect is of the adaptive reuse, repurposing the existing structures to reduce the waste and to promote sustainability. There's a wonderful example in Japan, which is referred to as the Namba Parks in Osaka in Japan. It was built on a site of an old baseball stadium between a busy street and a railway station. Namba Parks had a commercial function, but also it offers tranquility and contact with the nature in a densely built urban area. The whole complex forms a carved canyon with intersecting bridges, numerous balconies filled with greenery and cascades. A garden extends from the street level upwards and accessible from each floor. Now, this is one beautiful example where you could you could see the building design translating itself into a forest, where a person walking in a commercial space is having access to nature also while he is going through that entire space. Also, the famous example of the High Line Railway project in Western Manhattan by a group of people, the Friends of High Line, where they converted the entire railway line which was not in use into a path which was connecting two places, and they made the entire place into a green garden, and they made a lot of commercial places also to come in to sustain the for the maintenance of that entire green infrastructure that was laid out on that Highline Park. Uh, And the third aspect here would also be the green infrastructure, which is incorporating natural elements into urban design to mitigate the environmental issues. First one, as we discussed earlier, the regenerative design. Now, it is not enough to sustain the natural environment, but also it is important that we restore its processes that have been lost in the process of the development. Regenerative architecture demands a forward-thinking approach. Regenerative buildings are designed and operated to reverse the ecological damage that have a net positive impact on the natural environments. A lot of examples such as your balconies, your whatever green spaces that are lost. If the building is built vertically, can there be green infrastructure vertically also, so that the porosity of the earth is not lost? And wherever we have lost those connections between the lakes, where the nalas used to play a very important part, can we bring them back into so that wherever there's a gap between the buildings, can we create nalas? Can the contour of the earth be taken into account, and can a artificial nala be created, connected again back to the lake, so the lakes become revived and we have access to groundwater? That is the most important thing that we'll have to do in the future days to be coming. Green infrastructure. Integrating green infrastructure in architectural design can enhance the environmental justice. Green roofs, rain gardens, and permeable pavements help manage the stormwater, improve air quality, and provide urban green spaces. These are all free resources that we are getting, and hence we are not paying much importance to it. But today we have also seen where oxygen cylinders are being used in Delhi and in a lot of parts of China. Then we tend to associate with how important the free oxygen and the free air, the potable water would be. So we should not be reaching to such a situation, and we should be making sure that the future generations also have access to the same kind of air that our previous generations got. That is the biggest gift that we could be giving to the future generations. Water as received as rainfall, only taking the context of Bangalore, has been estimated to be around 4,000 kilometer cube annually. But it has been possible to harness only 619 kilometer cube for the beneficial use. And the groundwater potential is estimated to be around 450 kilometer cube. So imagine we are going to be harvesting all the rainwater that is being collected. Then we wouldn't have any conflicts between states happening at all, right? We could be giving out all the water, and then the water would also flow into the oceans. That is how much water that comes through the rainfall. It's only that how we manage the rainfall should be seen. Now, building a sustainable future, how and where architects could have a bigger role. Now, net zero buildings have been a concept that has been there at least from the past 1 decade. Now, net zero is a certification that is given, but most importantly, you will not be drawing resources from the external grid, but we would be providing resources to the external grid through the project that is executed. And you will be observing that for a period of 1 year or more to see that the building actually acts as a resource provider than a resource taker. Passive design and circular economy. Now, these are very connected topics where we use daylights and a lot of natural techniques in making sure that the natural resources and the energy efficient techniques reduce the environmental impact of the buildings. Circular economy is where you restrict the use of the materials, the virgin materials, and try to use more of recycled materials, and try to make sure that waste reduction is achieved on the site. Creating equitable spaces, how architecture can promote environmental justice. We have seen through the mixed use development, uh, we can have work, play, and social life all together happening at the same space. Now, if this happens, then we have a lot of spaces where you could be bringing out multiple activities, thereby making the place more livable. Now, by making this, you also reduce the carbon footprint of the entire earth. Now, public transportation is very again closely linked to mixed use development. When you have multiple mixed use developments happening, for example, like the example of how Masdar city is being planned, where you have multiple neighborhoods within a arc of around say 200, within a diameter of around 200 meter. Now, with multiple neighborhoods and which is connected by public transportation, not through private transportation, then you will have much more lesser carbon footprint throughout the world if multiple such neighborhoods or multiple such cities start happening. Now, a best way to start could be, from the road level, we go to the neighborhood level, from the neighborhood level, then to the ward level, from the ward level to the zone level of a city, and then the city itself. We could be, having this chain of events to be changing this entire process, because this cannot be changing right from tomorrow, because cities are already developed. Now, for the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities, at least we could have some these kind of development patterns, so that future generations may have equitable access to the fresh air and water. Green spaces, incorporating green spaces in your neighborhoods, in your cities, will play a very, very, very important role. The amount of green cover that will be there in the cities and the neighborhoods will play a role, not only in the aspect of the fresh air and the water, but also the real estate values that will change dynamically, because that is going to be the resource of the future. Promoting sustainable transportation and accessibility is essential for achieving the environmental justice. Architects can design buildings with easy access to public transport, prioritize pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. and your public transport. If pedestrian, cycling, and public transportation are prioritized over the private transportation, then we are achieving around 90% reduction in the entire carbon footprint from the vehicles itself, and create inclusive spaces that accommodate people of all abilities. Designing for social and environmental equity, the role of architecture. Universal design, where designing spaces that are accessible and inclusive for the people of all, yeah, all abilities. Now, this has been a topic, at least from the last few years, where we have seen accessibility to all, with of all abilities, has been a major concern. And there are a lot of new norms that have come in, mainly to make sure that everyone on this earth has access to all resources. Biophilic design, where we learn from nature on how nature has found solution to a lot of problems that have existed in nature. Now we are facing certain issues that are maybe because of the flooding, maybe the building design itself. There are a lot of examples from the nature that we could be learning from, and that is what we refer to as biophilic design. Resilient design, creating buildings that can withstand and recover from the environmental and social challenges that we are facing in today's world. Now, universal design principle for environmental justice. Inclusive design is the main idea or the theme behind the universal design. Designing for environmental justice requires a commitment to inclusive design practices that prioritize the needs and perspective of the marginalized communities. This means actively seeking out and incorporating from the community members, particularly those who have been historically excluded from decision-making process. In the West, there is a movement that has started, where the blacks who were excluded from the entire process of decision making are now being included in this process. Mainly, the movement of environmental justice has taken the entire West by a storm, and now they are trying to address the environmental justice. Now, it is not only about the race or the color that we are talking about here. It is also about the income capabilities that we should be concentrating on. From design to impact, how architecture can drive environmental justice. Policy advocacy, uh, through advocating policies. Now there are a lot of laws that come in, and how those laws get implemented in the in actual terms is what policy advocacy is all about. Education and awareness. Using platforms like this, we need to be reaching out to masses so that everyone gets educated about sustainability. Only when the masses know about the why we are talking about environmental justice, why environment is important, then they will be able to contribute in conserving them for the future generations. Collaborations and partnerships. We also need to be collaborating with all the other domains in the field, the engineers, there are a lot of lawyers. Everyone needs to come together on one board, and then we can be making a city that is meant for all, instead of designers only, or the policy makers only sitting on the table and designing cities. Policy and advocacy. By collaborating with policymakers, architects can influence regulations and standards to prioritize sustainable design, promote equitable development, and ensure that environmental justice considerations are integrated into the decision making process. At the policy level, architects and urban planners must work to negate the detrimental effects of gentrification, as well as to advocate for the idea of equity and fairness, especially with regards to affordability, cultural preservation, and the displacement of low income communities. This is a very common phenomena that we have seen in today's time. The city keeps growing. The marginalized communities are the people who are not able to afford such livelihood, are pushed to the edges of the city, and the city keeps on growing. They keep on changing their houses every now and then. Now, how do you bring that entire city? Because again, once they are moved out, the workforce that is required again needs to travel for such a long distance, and hence we are contributing to the carbon footprint in a bigger way. Now, could there be a design for the city or the neighborhood itself in such a way that everyone is integrated into the city plan, so that we don't have to face the effects of gentrification in the future? Education and awareness. Promoting education and awareness is crucial in fostering a sustainable future. Architects can engage in public outreach, participate in educational initiatives, and raise awareness about the importance of the sustainable design and its role in achieving environmental justice. It is not important only to be addressing only the architecture community or the related stakeholders. It is also important that we reach out to the masses who need to be aware of why we need to be conserving certain things and why it may have effect in the future. If there is going to be effect on the water, how will it affect them? Then they will, then when the entire society changes, that is when we will be actually realizing environmental justice for all. Collaboration and partnership. Architects can foster collaboration and partnership to advance the environmental justice. By working with other professionals, community organizations, policymakers, architects can leverage their expertise and resources to create a holistic, sustainable solutions that address social, economic, and environmental challenges. As architects, we may be restricted with certain technological advancements that could have helped in the entire process of the design of the city itself, and that is where we need to also be collaborating with other professionals to understand what role that profession or that skill or that technology could have impact on the city, and how it could be made, how it can make everyone's life better in the city itself. Fostering resilient communities. Now, this is going to be the trending topic in the future days, mainly because there are going to be a lot of disasters that we will be seeing due to the climate change that is happening rapidly. We have already seen a lot of flash floods, we have seen a lot of earthquakes happening, and multiple other disasters that we'll be seeing in the future. How do buildings uh, uh, counteract those effects of the climate change? What can be the climate adaptation mechanisms? How buildings could be made disaster resilience? And how community centers will play a very important role, where in case of disasters, how do people get together, where do people get together, and how community could come in and support for the entire duration of the disaster. Resilience and adaptation are the key components of environmental justice again. In order to address the challenge posed by the climate change and other environmental issues, it is important to design buildings and communities that are resilient and adaptable to changing conditions. When we look at history, environment has always been subject to changes, and these changes are not new, and it will continue in the future too. When life first appeared, there was no oxygen in the atmosphere, which was full of carbon dioxide and other gases, including water vapor. The primitive climate changed very slowly, and it took over 2 billion years to accumulate enough oxygen in the atmosphere, which helped in the evolution of life forms. Most of the oxygen in the atmosphere today has come from the water to the photosynthetic activities of the green plants. Such change is natural, but it has altered the chemical composition of the air, which has led to other changes in the environment. From oxygen of the atmosphere, ozone was formed, which slowly passed into the stratosphere, while it served as a protective umbrella of the ozone layer. The latter protects the life on Earth by absorbing the harmful UV radiations from the sun. So, Earth has always, the environment has always, or the nature has always learned from its past and has kept reviving itself. And we also need to be learning from nature, and that is what we refer to as biophilic or biomimicry. This also means using materials and construction techniques that can withstand extreme weather events, as well as designing buildings and communities that can adapt to changing environment conditions over time. Strategies for resilience and adaptation. Incorporating green infrastructures such as rain gardens, biospheres to manage the stormwater and reduce the risk of flooding. designing the buildings and communities that can withstand extreme weather events such as hurricanes and wildfires, using sustainable materials and construction techniques that are durable and can withstand changing environmental conditions over time. Influence of architecture in creating equitable and sustainable environments. We have three major parameters that could be seen, which is a social justice. Using architecture, can we be addressing social inequalities in the society? Sustainable materials. What is a sustainable material? Now, is it only based on the carbon footprint, or where is it being procured from? Will it be a matter of concern when we say sustainable materials? Also, energy efficiency. Now, designing buildings that minimize the energy consumption and carbon emissions. Now, today, is it enough for only the carbon minimization, or should we be focusing on net positive impact on the environment? Is something that we will have to be taking care of. Social justice. Design principles for environmental justice. Through contextual design, we could be achieving social justice. Now, what is a contextual design? It needs to be taken into picture when we are going to be designing a neighborhood or say a city, the entire context of that place, the entire context of that neighborhood, so that we make the design tailor made to that community. uh, Again, mainly because any foreign element coming into that community will not have any impact on that. I will not have any role to be playing in that community itself, and hence it may be a failure. Designing solutions must be tailored to specific cultural, social, and environmental context of the communities they serve. This requires a deep understanding of the local history, tradition, and values, as well as the appreciation for the unique ecological characteristics of the region. The ecological evolution, the ecological history also needs to be taken into picture. Energy efficiency. Energy efficient design is a key aspect of achieving environmental justice. Architects can incorporate energy efficient strategies like passive design, natural lighting, energy efficient HVAC systems to reduce energy consumption and lower the greenhouse gas emissions, contributing to a more sustainable future. And we have been talking on energy efficiency for quite a period of time. And today, the world needs to move from energy efficiency to net zero or net positive impact, is what I would say. Material efficiency. When we talk about sustainable materials, before we dive into sustainable materials, we need to be talking on material efficiency after energy efficiency, mainly because when we discuss about environmental justice, there are crucial questions that the architects need to address regarding the materials they use in their constructions. These concerns extend beyond energy efficiency to include material efficiency. Where do the materials come from? Where are those materials made? How are they made? And who is making them? We know that a lot of labor that is used in procuring the resources are children, and why are they being forced into these things? So we have to take all of this into account when we are talking about environmental justice as a solution for the future. Sustainable materials. Using sustainable materials is crucial in promoting environmental justice. Architects can choose materials that have a lower impact, such as recycled or locally sourced materials. By prioritizing sustainable materials, architects can reduce waste, carbon emissions, and promote a circular economy. Now, empowering communities through architecture, path to environmental justice. When communities are uh, given with all the data and the skills that they need, they would be much more better. When I say community, everyone coming together to design is what a community led design would be, where the designers, the architects take the lead. The entire community comes and says what is the need of that community, and you design according to their needs. That is what a community led design is, and that is crucial in achieving environmental justice. Capacity building, cultural preservations. We'll be seeing all of them again in detail now. Community led designs. Effective policy advocacy requires engagement with the community stakeholders to understand their needs and priorities. Architects can facilitate this engagement by organizing a community meeting or a workshop or any other events to gather the input. Now, there's one example that has been proved a very successful example all over the world: the Methodist neighborhood in Leeds, in United Kingdom. It was devised through the initiative of the Heads Together group, the Transport 2000, and the Children's Play Council. A recreational area for the residents was created over one weekend in August 1996, when 800 square meters of turf was laid over a neighborhood street. Now, this event led way towards the creation of one of the first home zones in the neighborhood in 2003. The home zone movement aims to find a balance between the drivers of the motor vehicles and the other road users, the pedestrians, cyclists, and the residents. The arrangement between the traffic and space forces drivers to drive more carefully and slowly, while benches, flowers, playgrounds, street lamps, fences, and trees is transform the streets and provide residents with many more additional benefits. Not only did it beautify the entire neighborhood, but also the real estate prices increased there. So this is one example, just to say how community-led design could be also increasing the real estate value, making the owning the street for themselves. That is the whole purpose of the community-led design. The second aspect of it is the public space and recreation. Community gardens and parks have proved to be the best solution in public space and recreation, where people come together, grow whatever they need, so that it's also fresh produce and space and it's opportunity where they for the recreation and also the social interaction between the members of that entire neighborhood or the community itself. Multi-use trails and bike lanes. Now, this is again providing safe and accessible multi-use trails and bike lanes can promote active transportation, reduce the dependence on cars, while also improving the public health and air quality. Now, why are we talking about public health and air quality? Is because this is again a data of only 36 cities that we have taken in India. India spends around a sizable portion of its revenue on health problems. In the 36 major cities of India, this accounts for about rupees 9,000 crores per year. So, uh, making the making the entire neighborhood or the city free from such carbon impacted health. Maybe if you could reverse that, there's a huge amount of resource available, which could be used for some other purpose, which can promote equality among all sections of the society. Another way in achieving the community-led design would be public art and cultural programming. Incorporating public art and cultural programming into public spaces can enhance the community identity and pride, while also promoting the social cohesion and economic development in those spaces. Now, measuring impact of this community-led design. Now, people themselves come together. They measure what is the how is the solution that is provided. Is it feasible? Is it workable? Or do we need to be changing? Is it something else that the community needs? All this could be through certain metrics which architects can devise. Now, measuring the impact of sustainable architecture projects is essential to ensure progress towards environmental justice. Architects can use metrics and tools to assess energy performance, carbon footprint, social equality, and other indicators, enabling continuous improvement and accountability in creating a sustainable future. Capacity building, the second aspect of community led design, which is through job creation. Environmental justice can be promoted through job creation in sustainable industries such as renewable energy and green infrastructure, so that more people are going to be taking this initiative than any other domains. Community wealth building. Now, encouraging the community ownership and control of resources and assets can help build the wealth and promote the economic stability in underrepresented communities. For example, to increase the real estate values of a certain neighborhood, there needs to be a certain green infrastructure, certain if you have good access to air, good access to water, obviously the real estate values of that neighborhood will increase. That is the only thing the governments will have to do to change the real estate value of certain areas which is represented by communities which are marginalized or impoverished. Cultural preservation. In today's context, I truly believe that science, society, spirituality, and culture should go hand in hand for a sustainable solution. Human beings have been interested in the environment since the beginning of the civilization. Even our ancient scriptures have included practices and values related with the environmental conservation. The protection of the forests as sacred forests belong to the religion-based conservation ethos of ancient people all over the world. And this is not only in India, because we normally consider sacred forests to be in a lot of parts in India, but all over the world we have seen the sacred forest to be there. Every religion believed that environment is the starting of life on earth. The oldest ever known Indian mythology also worshipped nature as Panchabhutas, the five fundamental elements: Agni, Vayu, Varuna, Bhumi, and Akasha, which means fire, wind, water, rain, soil, and space. Now, the importance of the environment is also discussed in a lot of Vedas and Puranas, which is the oldest literature of human history. Example of that is the Agni Purana, which highlights the design and the formalities to be followed in the construction of the lake. It also highlights that a person who constructs a tank or a lake attains 100 million more times more excellence than those who perform the ritual of Ashwamedha Yaga and goes directly to the heaven. Furthermore, since cattle and other animals drink the water from that same tank, the person who builds a tank is absolved of any sin in life. Gifting water through construction of reliable water source tank was also considered to be worthy and more important than having 1,000 children. That is how important the Vedas and the Puranas placed on the environment and the nature itself. The another example that we can see is the Rig Veda, which says once water is released from the clouds and reaches the earth, rivers become both the receptacles and carriers of the priceless divinity. As in Atharva Veda, replete with Visajya Sukta or the medicinal hymns, pure water is revered as panacea with medicinal properties which prevents and eliminates all diseases. The Vrikshosavidhi of Matsya Purana, again at chapter 154 of 512, attaches great importance to planting trees and even to the celebration of the tree festival or the Vana Mahotsava. It emphasizes the importance of planting a tree. It says 10 wells are equal to one lake, 10 lakes are equal to one reservoir, 10 reservoirs are equal to one child, and one tree is equal to 10 children. So, if one tree is taken down in any neighborhood or in any city, you can assume what we need to be thinking of. Vastu Shastra, which also is literally translated as the science of architecture. Now, it incorporates the constituent elements of design, layout, space, arrangement, and spatial geometry. The art of Vastu originates in Saptapya Veda, a part of the Atharva Veda, which emerged as a system of knowledge involving the connection between the man and the environment. Vastu Shastra is again based on the Pancha Bhutas. Not only in Hindu philosophy, but also Quran says water is the origin of all life on earth, the substance from which God created man. Quran also says that the day environment is affected, the world shall face wars. Even today, anyone enters Dargah, they should cleanse themselves with pure water. The idea behind it being that the belief would be carried back with them and they would make sure to keep the environment around them to be better. The word water is mentioned for around 722 times in the scriptures of Holy Bible, which is many more times than the word prayer and even worship is mentioned. Bible also quotes natural conservation for around 320 times. So we do have challenges, which also mean that it is also a lot of opportunities. While there are challenges in achieving the environmental justice through architecture, there are also significant opportunities. By embracing innovation, collaboration, and a commitment to social and environmental responsibility, architects can overcome obstacles and contribute to more sustainable and equitable future. architecture plays a crucial role in achieving environmental justice by prioritizing sustainable design, promoting social equity, and engaging with communities. Architects can create a built environment that addresses the needs of the people and the planet. Together, we can build a sustainable future where everyone has access to healthy, resilient, and inclusive spaces. Now, the image that is shown here is clearly representing that karma has the final say. The blanket of the green cover that we provide for the Mother Earth shall be equal to the yield of the resources that we gift to ourselves and our future generations. With this note, I'd like to thank you all for for being patient and hearing throughout the presentation.
Thank you, Architect Sharath, for shedding light on such a crucial topic in our field. Your presentation perfectly articulated the intricate relationship between architecture and environmental justice. I'm sure the webinar undoubtedly enriched our viewers' understanding to think more critically about the role of architecture in addressing environmental challenges and promote social justice through education, responsible choices, and conscious approaches, and have a lot of learnings to take away and are also curious to know more. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask away a few questions.
Sure, definitely.
So, to begin with, do you believe that architectural education should place a stronger emphasis on environmental justice concepts in curriculum? And what is the role of educators in making responsible future professionals who are better prepared for all these adverse effects that we were discussing in the presentation?
Okay. I've always believed in the Indian concept of Guru or the educator perceived as Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, which means the creator and the protector of the universe and the environment. An educator has always had a role in shaping the future minds by making them explore and learn from nature and thereby understand its benefits and the importance of conserving it. But in today's modern education system, which is driven by the economic goals, the role of an educator is much more challenging due to the environmental challenges that are facing our society today. Uh, it is not only the environmental challenges in the form of climate change, but also the resource depletion and also social inequalities that are coming into the picture. Educator today has a responsibility of changing the way society perceives environment and its accessibility for all in comparison to the environmental goals. Platforms like these are a wonderful opportunity for the educators to come on board and to reach out to the masses. Yes, I truly believe that architectural education should play a major role in the environmental justice. Looking at the challenges of the future where resources are bound to fall short with the current usage scenario, consumable food, potable water, breathable air may not be going to be accessible by all. It will be critical that professional courses like architecture should include environmental justice with sustainability as one of the goals that needs to be achieved in every semester design so that the future professionals are not only technically proficient but also socially and environmentally responsible in their practice.
Very well said, sir. Totally agree with you. And you mentioned a lot of elements of architectural, through architecture, how the justice can be promoted. But in your opinion, what is the most pressing environmental justice issue that the field of architecture should address today, beginning from now? And how can architects contribute to solving it?
Okay. According to me, the most pressing environmental justice issue that the field of architecture should address today is the unequal distribution of the impacts of climate change and environmental degradation on the marginalized communities. Often, these marginalized communities bear a disproportionate burden of the environmental degradation, such as pollution, lack of access to green spaces, and vulnerability to climate impacts. Architects can play a crucial role in addressing this issue by focusing on a few elements which we discussed throughout the presentation, such as equitable access to sustainable design, by ensuring that environmental friendly design is accessible to all. Architects can help reduce disparities in environmental quality through community engagement. Collaborative community-based design processes can ensure that the project reflects the values and the aspirations of the people who live and use the space. That's promoting the environmental justice. Through adaptive reuse, rather than contributing to urban sprawl and displacement, architects can repurpose the existing space. Through resilient design, architects can design buildings and infrastructure that are better prepared to withstand the impacts of climate change, such as flooding and extreme heat. Vulnerable communities often suffer disproportionately from these events, so architects can contribute by designing resilient solutions to protect them. And through sustainable materials and construction practices, architects can lower the environmental impact of construction and reduce the exposure of the construction workers and nearby residents to harmful pollutants. Also, through education and outreach, architects can educate the public and clients about the importance of the environmental justice and sustainable design principles. Now, this can lead to a greater demand of equitable, sustainable architecture and encourage responsible development. Finally, through the research and innovation, architects can stay updated on the latest developments in material, technology, and design strategies that benefit both the environment and marginalized communities.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And we know that you covered the future question that I'm going to ask, but just to elaborate a little bit on that, how do we measure the environmental and social impact of architectural projects in promoting justice and sustainability? Like you mentioned, there are few typologies and also few tools that assess, but could you give us
Yes,
a little
yes.
bit more about what
Okay.
exactly?
I will have to answer this question in three parts.
Okay.
Environmental impact, social impact, and then how to promote justice and sustainability. So first of all, to address environmental impact assessment, we could use tools such as life cycle assessment, where we evaluate the environmental impact of a building throughout its life cycle, from raw material extraction to construction to use and eventual demolition. Now, energy and resource efficiency as another tool should assess the project's energy consumption, water usage, and resource efficiency. This includes evaluating the use of renewable energy sources and sustainable materials. Lastly, to answer the first part of the question, lastly, to assess the carbon footprint, we need to measure and minimize the project's carbon footprint by assessing the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the construction operation and transportation. Now, the second part of the question, which to address the social impact assessment, job creation and economic impact could be an indicator where we need to assess the project's contribution to the local employment and economic development. Also, check if the project aims to create job opportunities and support local businesses. The second indicator could be the accessibility and inclusivity to ensure that the design is accessible to people of all abilities and socio-economic backgrounds. Another indicator could be the community engagement to involve the local community in the design process, understand their needs, preferences, concerns to create the project that aligns with their community needs. Going further to the last part of the question, which is to promote justice and sustainability, we should have equitable access to certification systems such as LEED or BREEAM. We should adapt to a robust system of monitoring and feedback with tools such as post-occupancy evaluation and performance metrics. We should foster interdisciplinary collaborations and conduct such education and outreach programs to promote awareness and education about the sustainable and socially responsible architecture among the stakeholders.
Very well articulated, sir. I'm just trying to understand all the points in the flow of content. Thank you so much for providing such an elaborate format for our viewers today. And that was very informative and insightful, sir. So on behalf of all of us at Glass Academy and Ethos, we'd like to thank you for sharing your thoughts today with us and making so much time for this presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Team Ethos and Glass Academy and Saint Coben for hosting me.